Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of KHLocria after a 2-week sort of hiatus, but issues beyond my control, illness, and 2 weeks ago I was on a road trip, so I kind of couldn't. But I am back, and we're in today's segment. We're going to talk about KHL free agency, World Championships, some recent news around KHL teams' participation in next year's Spengler Cup tournament, the Gagarin Cup final, which I never got to review. I'll be taking questions as always. Um, so without further ado, we're just gonna get the Gagarin Cup finals out of the way because, yeah, that's something that would have been recapped if I wasn't sick last week. So the KHL season ended last Wednesday, and Metallurg Magnitogorsk is the champion in a very, very entertaining final. They won Game 7 at home 7-4. Lev fell asleep during the second period, and Magnitogorsk pounced all over them. But it was a historic playoff for the reason that Sergei Mizhakin set new playoff records for points and assists on one playoff. He had 33 points, which completely crushed the old record held by the late Josef Vasicek, which was 22 points. And then the previous record for assists was 15, which was a five-way tie between, again, the late Vasicek, Pavel Demitra, again late, Patrick Torsen, Alex Radulov, and Denis Kokarev. He broke that with 20 assists. He was named playoff MVP, and well, he damn well deserved it because he was a one-man army. So that's basically what happened. The team split the first two games of Magnitogorsk, then they split the next two games of Prague. Magnitka won Game 5 in overtime. Lev responded with a Game 6 overtime win, in which Mike Keenan tried to fight the refs after the game for something that happened in the first period. And then Game 7, I don't know what happened to Lev, but yeah, they wound up down 7-4. So now that that's out of the way, also Vasily Kosheshkin also tied the playoff record for wins with 16 because KHL used to have a best of 5 first round, so nobody had hit 16 with the exception of Alex Aryamenko 2 years ago. So now that we're done with that, the off season's begun, and with that, free agency. I'm just going to go over some of the more major signings. First of all, Slovenian Olympians Rok Ticar and Ziga Jeglitz. They are both taking their talents to the KHL for the first time. They played in the German Deutsche Eishockey Liga last year, with Ticar playing for Cologne and Jeglitz playing for Ingolstadt. Coincidentally, the two finalists in that league. But they have signed with Slovan Bratislava for next year, which is certainly interesting. Vladimir Tarasenko's player rights were traded. That's really not that big of a deal. Andrew Hutchinson from Zug of the Swiss League has signed with Medveshak, and we're going to get to them in a bit because they've been hemorrhaging players this offseason. Actually, we're going to get to that right now. Dynamo Minsk is loading up for something next year. Because in this offseason, they've signed Matt Ellison, Ivan Shmarny, Jonathan Chichu, Charles Linglet, and Ryan Veske, all of Medveshak this year, along with Paul Shahura from Dynamo Riga, who's also lost another big player, Matt Robinson, signed with Dynamo Moscow, while another key player, Kyle Wilson, who was like top 5 in the league in scoring before going down late in the season, with an injury, he signed with Donbass. So yeah, that's a lot of movement. Daron Quint was traded back to Spartak for money. I don't know where they got this money to get him for, where they got the money from, because they're broke and they might not even play next year. I don't know. It's complicated. Amur signs a trio of Slovaks: Michal Miklik, Olympian, Marcel Hashak, we'll see him at World Championships, which I'm going to get to in a bit. And Rostislav Spirko. So that is Amur. Salavat Ulayev today, making two signings. Denis Bodrov, who played for Spartak last year, and Dmitry Seomin, who had played the last couple years for Avangard. But Salavat's going to have to find some way to get another goalie because Andrei Vasilevsky just signed his entry-level contract. Something that I personally believe makes absolutely no sense from a developmental standpoint. And not just because I'm a KHL homer. Let's see here. In a weird sequence, Mikhail Yunkov's rights were traded from Magnitka to Spartak yesterday. Only for him to sign with Magnitka again today. I don't know what the heck was up with that, but yeah, that happened. And Rafael Batirshin signing, he was an Atlanta defenseman. He's now signing with Magnitka, 27-year-old. Max Ignatovic returning to Sibir after being released mid-season and signing with a Kazakh team. Former World Junior Gold medalist. Continuing to look at all these. Eduard Reisvik re-ups with Avangard. He had been playing in the VHL. Jokerit re-upping with, or rather, now signing Adi Otama and Ville Lejunen, both of whom have been playing in Scandinavian leagues. Otama with Karpat in the Finnish league, and Lejunen with Färjestad in the Swedish league. Oh, I'm missing the biggest one. I don't know how I skipped over this. Kevin Dahlman signing with Boris, making his return to a team where he was captain for, I believe it was 4 years. Yep, 4 years. 2008 to 2012. Left Boris after the 2012 season, signed with SKA. Had a decent year and then had a pretty blah year this year. So maybe returning to Astana and representing his now national team at World Championships. Again, I'm going to get to that in a bit. Maybe that might spark something and bring back the Kevin Dahlman we know from a couple years ago, who was like a point-per-game defenseman. Artyom Ternavsky signing with Ugra. He was like I believe he was top 5 in penalty minutes this year, playing for Admiral. That's about it in terms of significant signings. Martin Ruzicka leaving the Czech league to sign with Tractor. I believe he is the only Czech league exile to sign. Exile is probably not the right word. The only player who was playing in the Czech league to sign in the KHL. So that is that. There's more signings, but, I'll get to those later. A lot of players have had contract extensions, so doing those would take too long. The most recent re-up being Lukas Krajicek with Dynamo Minsk, who, again, they made some serious noise this offseason, which is surprising, but also not surprising. Because, well, they had a lost season this year. Anyways, Spengler Cup. I'm going to get to that before I start talking about World Championships. 3 KHL teams, all from different nations, will be participating in next year's Spengler Cup competition. These 3 KHL teams will be Medveshak, Jokerit, and Salavat Ulayev. A very interesting mix. Spengler Cup, for those of you who don't know, I had to explain it to someone else. I believe it was Yelnat They, if memory serves, the Spengler Cup is basically an invitational tournament. It's held every year in Davos, Switzerland. HC Davos is the host and plays in it every year and has the most titles, blah, blah, blah. And basically, it's like a carnival atmosphere, like in and around Davos for the Spengler Cup. It's a pretty big deal there. This year, the KHL was represented by a Red Army, who did see for a couple of games the return of Sergei Fedorov in the Spengler Cup, he didn't really do much, and they lost the final to Genève Servette of the Swiss League. Speaking of Genève Servette, one thing tying into free agency, Kasper Stajevans, who was playing there this year, he is signed with Dynamo Moscow. I don't know how I almost missed that, but whatever. Anywho, Big Enchilada World Championship starting Friday in Minsk, Belarus, home of, well, Dynamo Minsk. And there's a lot of KHL players going. If memory serves, only 3 teams didn't send for a single KHL player. Those being France. Oh, 4. I recounted Canada, France, Italy, and Switzerland. The team that sent the most, Boris, sending 19, all of whom play for Kazakhstan. Vitaly Ermayev, Yevgeny Blokhin, Kevin Dahlman, Vladimir Grebenshikov, Vladislav Kolesnikov, Artemy Lakizha, Alexei Litvinenko, Roman Savchenko, Maxim Semyonov, Nick Antropov, Andrei Gavrilin, Mikhail Panshin, Fyodor Polishuk, Konstantin Pushkaryov, Mikhail Rachmanov, Konstantin Romanov, Roman Starchenko, Dmitry Uper, and Talgat Jailuov, who hopefully is healthy after suffering a concussion during the KHL playoffs. He was the one that was hit his head on the ground after fans threw him up in the air, and he kind of fell. Looking again, 4 teams sent 1 KHLer. Nicholas Anderson of Severstal will be playing for Team Sweden. Akbar's Tim Stapleton for the USA. He won a bronze medal with them last year. The KHL's lone German, Felix Schutz, who led Admiral this year in scoring. He will be representing Germany. And from Denmark, Patrick Bjorkstrand, again, league's only Dane, from Medveshak. Again, Boris leading, followed closely by Dynamo Riga, who sent, I believe it was 12 players. Well, I included Hashak in that count. So it's kind of incorrect, but whatever. And SKA sent 10. Actually 9 now, because I forgot about Dahlman. And only 2 KHL teams did not send a single player this year. Those were Amour and Vetus. Or not Amour. Amour did send someone. They sent Andrei Stepanov. What was I thinking? Neftihimik and Vetus. I don't know how I mix up Neftihimik and Amour. Oh well. As for the finalists, I believe Magnitka is only sending Denis Zaripov and Jan Kovorsh. While Lev sends Andrzej Nemetz, Martin Sevic, Jakub Klepish, Yurzy Novotny, Yurzy Sikacs. There's another one laying around somewhere. I'm trying to remember. Nope, that's it. I'm double checking my list right now. Yeah, I have a list. The KHL is also sending 2 head coaches. Well, Oleg Znarok, I'm not even sure if you count him anymore, but he is Russia's head coach, while Kazakhstan brings Ari Pekaselin of Boris. So, yeah. It'll be a very interesting tournament. Again, it starts Friday. First 2 games are at 16:45 Minsk time, which I'm going to try and convert that to Eastern right now. That is, why is Google so bad? What time is it in Minsk? Yeah, I'm lazy. While I'm working on this, it will be a doubleheader, actually, at that point in time. Switzerland versus Russia and France versus Canada. If you're following for KHLers, you can say fuck off to the French and the Canadians. Well, there will be a lot of KHLers on Team Russia. I'm trying to count here. Let's see, I accidentally included Kasheshkin and Zajakin, who are not going. But there's actually decent diversity in teams on that one, and even age groups. Yegor Yakovlev and Nikita Zaitsev, they're both really young. And then you have a guy like Zaripov, who's been around forever. And this stupid website is not being very helpful for Minsk time. Whatever, I'm sure you can look it up on your own. Well, it's just too much trouble to go through that right now. Because I really don't feel like doing math. Still no questions, which kind of sucks. Trying to think of what else to talk about. I mean, there really isn't a whole lot to talk about. I mean, the Gagarin Cup finals are over. There's no KHL hockey going on right now. The Worlds don't start for another 2 days. Oh yeah, there's a couple of national team debuts for players who are, well, first international actual competitions for a couple players who are naturalized citizens of the countries they will be representing. So I'll give a quick shout out to Kevin Lalonde, Jeff Platt, and Kevin Dahlman, although Dahlman played in Olympic qualifying. This is his first IIHF tournament, obviously excluding that one, in which Kazakhstan fell, I believe, just 1 goal short of making the Olympics, but they were in Latvia's group. So really, there isn't a whole lot to talk about. It's been a rather slow news week as far as the KHL is concerned. Off-season problems, you know. I'm getting no questions, and NHL games start soon, so yeah, I'm really not having much hope for where this is going. I could talk about my thoughts on the whole Vasilevsky thing. I think from a developmental standpoint, it's not very bright of him. And that sounds kind of weird, but not just because I'm a homer. But you think about it. Right now, he would be either an AHL starter or an NHL backup because there's no way he's passing Ben Bishop on that depth chart. He'd dominate the AHL. And you look at his numbers career in the KHL. I'm bringing them up right now. Andrei Vasilevsky, this year, in his first year as a starter, a .923 save percentage in the regular season and a .934 save percentage in the playoffs, in which he was incredible in those playoffs. Like, watch the last 3 games of the Salvat Magnitka series. That series should not have gone 5. It should have gone longer. But Vasilevsky was making highlight reel saves, making, and he was consistently good throughout the playoffs. I mean, I think he had 1 bad game in the Torpedo series, and that's about it. But if he's an AHL starter, it's not going to be much of a challenge. He should be able to dominate the AHL. But if he's an NHL backup, he's not getting the experience. So honestly, if I was him, I would have stayed in the KHL. I mean, you're staying close to home. And, you're going to be a starter compared to going to, against good competition. Whereas in the AHL, I mean, he'd face okay competition, but I don't think there's a person alive that would say the AHL is better than the KHL. Even though the AHL is my childhood, and thus I have a bit of a bias towards it. I'm just rambling on at this point. I'm just trying to fill time. But if you're an NHL backup, I mean, you're not getting playing time. You're not getting experience. That's bad for development. And if I were him, I would have stayed in the KHL. He'd make more money than he'd be making in the AHL. He'd be playing tougher competition than he'd be playing in the AHL. He'd be close to home, and then he'd be getting the experience he wouldn't be getting in the NHL. Although maybe, I don't know, maybe he's trying to get adjusted to the smaller ice early. I don't know. It's a very confusing thing. I personally, again, I would have stayed in the K for at least another year. Anyways, I'm not getting any questions, which is really, really irritating. Let me double check the Twitter. Getting none in the Q&A, so I accidentally logged out, so I have to log back in. No, I got nothing. So yeah, that'll do it for this episode. I apologize it was so short and kind of blah, but off season, not really a whole lot to talk about. Next week we'll be talking about World Championships, which I guess is kind of interesting. Until then, this is Locria saying goodbye.